It looks weird, doesn't it? Raheem Sterling in an Arsenal shirt. It appears to be one of those where you expected at some point for him to play for Arsenal Football Club, but with him being at Chelsea, you thought that ship sailed and you couldn't quite believe it. Now, as we know, Raheem Sterling has signed for Arsenal for the 2024-25 season on a loan deal. I don't know how you lot are with it, people, but in truth, I think it's a good contingency plan. It's a deal our sporting director, Edu, openly said was not part of the summer transfer plans. Where you look at it, the Athletic said Benjamin Sesko and Nico Williams were our targets. Much like a lot of the goalkeepers we're linked with, we failed to get those things in, people. One must say, again, I do think this will be a good signing, and please allow me to humour you lot. Now, it's fair to say Raheem Sterling's time at Chelsea has not gone to plan since he completed his £50 million move from Manchester City roughly 2 seasons ago. He has scored 9 goals and 10 assists respectively in those 2 campaigns. When you look at it in isolation, it is bad for someone of Raheem Sterling's quality, but for a winger, it's not necessarily such, people. Last season, however, he netted fewer than 10 people, and the last time he did that was actually 2012, 2013, I believe. And I'd also believe last season, where you look at the Premier League, he only got 8, and there's been years where you'd have to go back several years where he's barely touching 5. So it was really a poor 2 seasons by Raheem Sterling standards, considering he's been playing at the highest level since 17 years of age, people. Of course, his move to Chelsea was designed kind of like you're seeing with Arsenal, to get him regular football and to help him look at their project. As we know, Enzo Maresca has said he's not in the plans. Jadon Sancho and Pedro Neto have arrived, and it appears that Mudryk, Felix, Nkunku and many other options are preferred at Chelsea ahead of him. Then you look at it, he also lost his place in the England team, unable to add to the 82 caps he has for England, and someone that's been to European competitions and World Cups for England. So life is coming fast at Raheem Sterling, and he appears, from a footballing perspective, not quite feeling sorry for himself, but down on his luck. Now, he has a reunion with Mikel Arteta. You would imagine Mikel believes that Raheem Sterling is capable of getting back to those numbers he produced at Manchester City. Where you look at in the 5 consecutive Premier League campaigns, at a certain point, he got between 7 and 28 goal involvements, which we could definitely do. I mean, let's be honest, if Bukayo Saka isn't making the difference, Trossard did it last season, or Kai Havertz, then we're kind of in trouble. Yes, we got 91 goals, but it is a bit of a peculiar situation. The manager has also said he's an outstanding character, and you look at Raheem Sterling, all the nonsense from the likes of Piers Morgan, assassination of his character, the talking points that are said, I do think he has a resilient character, which you don't have the career Raheem Sterling has had for the teams he's played for and everything he's achieved if you do not have that. And he has got longevity. Now, at 29 years of age, turning 30, this is probably the most important season in Raheem Sterling's career, or maybe an exaggeration. I think naturally he could be a positive influence among the squad, people. I mean, he's not expected, I suppose, with Arsenal fans to start every game, but I think there is a greater discussion to be had there. There are obviously several question marks where you look at Raheem Sterling signing beyond the obvious. The first would be where he plays. He could obviously provide competition / deputise for Bukayo Saka, or if Saka's form isn't there, he'd play on the right. I wouldn't want to see it, but he can play in the hole behind Martin Odegaard, and we have complained about the lack of options there, summed up by letting Smith Rowe and Fabio Vieira depart. He can occupy the false 9 position, and he can play on the left, so he does have versatility, and in his way, he does provide depth to the attacking options. For me, I'd prefer him to be on the left-hand side. I think Kai Havertz is one of the first names on the team sheet, and he's picked up where he left off last season doing the business. Bukayo Saka in the last 3 games, I wouldn't say he's playing amazing, but that's by Bukayo Saka's own standards. He's still significantly better than a lot of his teammates. So the striker position is sorted, right wing is sorted. The left-hand side seems to be open season. Martinelli's form is woeful. While it's harsh to just judge one player on one start, which Trossard got against Brighton, in my opinion, Trossard is seen as a rotational option. So it seems like the left-hand side could be open season in that regards, people. And that could obviously be a spring in Raheem Sterling's step, if I'm completely honest. And I mean, you'd imagine if a team plays a high line and we get in and they get into a foot race, Raheem Sterling could make those light runs from in to out, out to in, and he would be a great signing in that regards. I genuinely think this is a better signing than people are giving credit. Yes, the context with how how our summer panned out towards the end, the lack of signings, not getting our first choice targets. People will say Raheem Sterling's damaged goods and he's a Chelsea reject, and Sterling will have to prove people wrong. But I think the late runs into the box are his bread and butter. He's pivotal in the opposition's box. You look at his the vast majority of his goals are scored in the opposition's area, and we need greater influence. So I think he could help people, and it's the space in behind that attracts me, people. As I said, the late runs from out to in, from in to out. You look at a couple of the screenshots on screen with what you saw at Manchester City with Kevin De Bruyne and him. Could we not do this similar thing with Bukayo Saka and Kai Havertz and also Raheem Sterling, which we've kind of shown people? And I think, again, Sterling could be a killer on the transition. He provides stability. Again, if teams are dumb enough to play a high line, we could kill them on the transition. I think with Kai Havertz dropping deep into midfield, Saka and Sterling in theory can make late runs. I think in theory, again, it needs to be put into practice, but in theory, this is a much better signing than I think people are given credit for. Sterling's long been a huge threat in 1v1 situations and scenarios. He's got the ability to effectively press and counter press, and that's evidently improved, people. You look at most of his appearances for Manchester City, they came on the left-hand side. I think his shooting is frustrating and he does miss a lot of chances, and I definitely don't want him to take free kicks, but I think there's been an improvement. You do not have the career at Manchester City, make the appearances he's made at Manchester City if you're not a good player. Don't forget, when Pep Guardiola walked through the door at Manchester City, people said Raheem Sterling is one of the first to leave, and you look at the goals and consistent appearances, it's fair to say they were wrong. In terms of what Mikel Arteta and Pep Guardiola demand, people, they demand their wide attackers to stretch the pitch, hold their positions during build-up play, and when the time is right, cut inside and exploit the opposition and cause damage, people. And that is where I think Sterling could help Arsenal greatly, if I'm completely honest with you. And he's skilled and he knows that, if I'm brutally honest. When the opportunity is there, he'll make those diagonal runs. He can help with build-up play. His link-up play is definitely not the best, but it's not the worst. And again, you look at his role at Manchester City, it was closer to that of a second striker rather than a traditional wide player. He would often move into positions between the line to link play, and his main focus when City have the balls try to be on the finishing cusp of the moves in the final third of the pitch or the final phase of action, which I think, again, that's what you want Sterling to do. Again, people, Pep Guardiola was always appreciative of the value of Sterling and the impact he had, people. And as a reminder of his importance, since the manager's appointment in Pep Guardiola's case, at the time, no player had made more Premier League appearances for Manchester City than Raheem Sterling. He ranked fifth at a point, people, for Premier League goal involvement since he made his debut for Liverpool as a 17-year-old in 2012. And he's still out here in 2024. Yes, he's seen as not being the guy for Chelsea, but if you playing for Chelsea Football Club at 29 years of age means you're finished, I'm not sure. He's got his tally at the time, people, of 165 in brackets, 109 goals and 56 assists, placed him only behind Harry Kane, Sergio Aguero, Mohamed Salah and Jamie Vardy. That tally is very impressive, apologies, when you factor how he failed to hit double digits for goals in a season until 17-18, people, when his 17 goals represented 157% leap from the previous campaign. There was a period where he, maintained those numbers, and his career best was a return of 20 in the 2019-20 campaign. For me, he's good in tight spaces. He's a threat in behind. He can score goals. He knows what Mikel Arteta wants, and he can counter press and high press. And he's obviously got a point to prove, a chip on his shoulder. For me, I'm all for this. One game, while nobody really remembers what he really did at Chelsea, where Arsenal fans are concerned, one game would be a game last season, I believe, or maybe even the season before, against Liverpool, ironically, also one of his former clubs, where if you look at the way Pochettino set up in that game, he placed him in behind Liverpool's midfield three. Sterling constantly left Robertson with a dilemma and a decision to make. Does he push towards Raheem Sterling, which frees up Reece James, or does he focus on Reece James making those run forward, which allows Raheem Sterling to get between the lines? In that game, Chelsea made sure to find either Sterling or James directly to deny Liverpool's midfielders the time to shift across, which evidently can affect them. And our manager Mikel Arteta, this is right up on the street. He probably knows Mikel Arteta probably knows Raheem Sterling more than he knows himself. The most effective of those roles, once again, against Liverpool in this game was Sterling's positioning on that right-hand side, people. if I'm honest. And one thing that when I think of Sterling, I think of movement. Think about it. What is Kai Havertz praised for? Movement. Saka is a transitional king and is learning how to be more devastating centrally and things of that nature. Sterling's game is also based off running behind and causing damage. So I'm not suggesting the first choice front three is going to be Kai Havertz, Saka, and Sterling. I'm just saying that would be a good scenario. If we've got those three, Gabriel Jesus getting back to his business, Trossard doing his thing and banging on the door, and whoever else I haven't mentioned, we're laughing. For me, there's many things to like about Sterling. He's the same age as me. Obviously, him being Jamaican born, it obviously helps. There's that. He grew up in Northwest. We're a team of the culture, and Raheem Sterling is a player of the culture. Let's be honest, people. We all know Raheem Sterling is one that we support beyond the obvious because we know how the tabloids have tried to do him dirty. And I've watched Raheem Sterling grow up from the QPR skill schools on Soccer AM to the Victory Shield to watching him come through at Liverpool before Brendan Rodgers assassinated his character and leaked things to the press, to him becoming a household name at Manchester City, to him evidently being at Chelsea and still actually employed by Chelsea, but he's been loaned to Arsenal for a year. And he's a London player as well, people. So there's a lot to like. I will never write off a player before giving him a chance. Do I think Raheem Sterling is an inspirational signing? 100% I don't. But it's a signing that I definitely don't think is bad, people. I guess it's the way and the premise in which Raheem Sterling arrived on deadline day, in which has giving fans more of the hump. There's people doubting his ability, so you could argue there's a point to prove. He knows Mikel Arteta. I'm sure he wants to win a trophy. It's not an assurance that he's going to get regular football at Arsenal, but he's shown before he wants football. So he's coming to put a place down or lay down a marker. And while, it's a while to go until the 2026 World Cup, I'm sure he wants to get back in England contention, especially with Southgate leaving, people. So between him looking like damaged goods, the Chelsea exile, there's a lot to like about him. There's a lot to like about him from a footballing point of view and the mentality. As I said, he's dealt with a lot of things off the field. He's dealt with a lot of critics and doubters his whole life, much less within football. So I think he's got the character required to not only turn the situation around, but also thrive at Arsenal. I don't believe he's coming here to sit on the bench. And we've got to remember, this is not the Raheem Sterling show. This is not a rehab center. He is going to have to earn his place. I don't think you can define Raheem Sterling as a consistent marksman throughout his career, people, but he does have a respectable 173 goals, I believe, in 159 games or something of that ilk at the time of writing. Arsenal will be getting a player who will be motivated to change public perception and prove Chelsea and Maresco wrong. If Mikel Arteta can reignite the fire within Raheem Sterling and bring him back towards his best, this transfer may be yet seen as a stroke of genius, as a master stroke. Now, naturally, worst case scenario, best case scenario, he is one of the signings of the season. He's essentially going back to Chelsea and he might have put himself in the shop window, or Chelsea might say, you know what, I've made a mistake. Let's bring him back in, people. When you look at Mikel Arteta's time working with Raheem Sterling, he ended up with 55 league goals across those 3 campaigns from a non-penalty XG of 45.4. Many of those goals, as well as the 23 Premier League goals he managed in those final 2 seasons at City, came from making intelligent runs. Now, as much as we talk about the football, what is Mikel Arteta focused on a lot? It's what we do without it. This is where Raheem Sterling thrives. And you look at his pedigree, you can say what you want about this individual. 4 Premier League titles, 82 England caps, played for Manchester City, Liverpool, now Arsenal, as well as Chelsea. He's giving Anelka a run for his money. I know, people, as well as PFA Young Player nominations and many others. At one point, he was the most expensive English player. So there's plenty of things he can teach to his teammates at Arsenal on a temporary basis. And there's many things he can give us, people. You would have seen he was at the game versus Brighton. No doubt he'll be joining a manager that he knows very well and will hit the ground running. And there'll be a number of familiar faces in and around the Emirates in terms of his current teammates for the campaign. With that being said, though, people, let me know your thoughts on Raheem Sterling joining us. What do you make of this? Where do you think he'll play? Leave a comment. And also where you look at the 2024 summer signings, with David Raya's loan move being made permanent, with Calafiori, Mikel Moreno, Neto, the goalkeeper from Bournemouth, joining on loan on deadline day, in addition to Raheem Sterling. signing. What do you make of it? What would you rate it out of 10? For me, I would give it a 6. I think we've got some good depth and we've technically addressed the areas we wanted to, but I don't think we've married the depth. I still don't think we have enough players. I wanted to go into the season with 17 players, people that we really trust. I don't quite think that's the case. There's been a mixed bag where outgoings are concerned. I think the net spend balance looks positive, and you look at the Eddie Nketiah and Smith Rowe deals, they were great. I know Aaron Ramsdale's stock's been hit, for example, but I don't believe Ramsdale is worse a keeper than when he arrived at this football club than when he's leaving. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on Raheem Sterling at Arsenal. Would you start him against City and actually Spurs? Do you think he'll be a success? And don't forget to let me know your thoughts on the summer transfer window as a whole. With that being said, you lot stay safe, stay blessed, like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.
Because you always just got to when like